know a lot of us are getting seed mail these days, which is always really exciting. Actually, for me, I don't get a lot of seed mail in January because for my business, I try to have all my seeds already in hand months before I need to be planting them. I learned that the hard way in my first year trying to be a serious farmer florist and put in a couple of huge orders with a domestic company here in Canada. I still use to this day because their quality is really great, their prices are really great, but I ordered all this stuff that I wanted to be growing in the spring, and then I waited and I waited and I waited, and it turns out that the company ships quite a bit later in late winter, and so a lot of the things that I ordered got here too late for me to be able to do a good job growing them. That being said, we are getting seed mail. I've got seed mail coming, and I know a lot of you do, and depending on what you're getting, now is a fine time to be ordering seeds. So I wanted to share with you some of the seeds that I've been getting, but I wanted to be really careful when I do this because I feel really responsible whenever I have shared things online, whether it's on my farm business, Instagram, and I don't want to make anyone feel like they're late on starting something, that they're behind. So I just want to caution that when you're seeing other farmers starting things, don't panic. If anything, maybe consider the fact, oh, they're in a similar growing location as me. They're not too far from me. I wonder why they're starting that. And I'm going to have another look at my last frost date, how many weeks it takes me to germinate this thing, how many weeks before it can be planted out. And I'm going to look at it from that approach and just reassess what it is that I'm doing rather than just panic and think you're doing it wrong. If there's one thing I've learned about growing flowers is that every single one of us is in a different situation with what we're growing. Every single one of us has different soil, different microclimates. There's so many different factors to growing. And the hard thing about seeing what someone's doing online is that you're not necessarily getting a window into all of the factors that are in play with their setup. So please don't panic. I hope I'm not going to panic any of you with what I'm going to share. And so I'm going to be trying to give you as many whys as to what I've got coming in right now. And that's going to include as much of the growing context as I can give you, as well as the design component. Not one of us needs to be growing absolutely everything. So as you start growing and you find what things are working really well for you in your situation, things that you just find are easier to grow, they're more effortless for you, pay attention to those ones. Just as a reminder, I am a farmer florist in Southwest British Columbia, Canada. Our climate here, we are zone 8B. We are a mild, cool, coastal climate. So we are mild in the summer, we are mild in the winter. Our springs are long and things don't heat up quite as quickly for us. Those are all factors that influence what it is that we are successful with growing here. In terms of my business, I'm a mom, and now that my kids are in school, I'm focusing more and more on the farming, but I started to cultivate a business that focused less on volume sales, even though that is my industry background, and I actually lean more into boutique style, value added. That makes a lot of sense for me with how much time I have to devote to what I'm doing. I would rather focus on selling less things at a higher price point than selling more of those things at a lesser price point, if that makes sense. So I would rather up the price a little bit on something and increase the profit margin of it. I'm not going to sell as many of them, but I can still hit the same gross sales doing it that way with often less effort. That is something that has heavily influenced what I do and what I grow. So I have a wedding. I don't do a lot of weddings, mostly because I don't want to commit to them, and I really don't want to commit my summer to them, but a very lovely, sweet, wonderful customer of mine has asked me to do a wedding that actually fits with my schedule. I've been planning my crops like crazy for early June to try to be having certain things ready for that time. So one of the things that I've got that has come in for me are Chantilly Snapdragons. One word on snapdragons. If you don't know, they exist in groups. They are categorized based on their growing conditions. So there are 4 groups of snapdragons, and each group prefers slightly different conditions. Some of them prefer longer days and warmer weather. Some of them prefer cooler, shorter days. When you are buying snapdragons for cut flowers, they are not all created equal. I am very glad that I have tried Chantilly snapdragons in the past because I actually have some farm data on exactly when did I start these, when were they flowering, that kind of thing. So I have pretty good chances to have these guys ready. I've already started them. In the past, they were a 17, 18 week crop by starting them early and planting them out in my hoop houses March 1st and having them ready. Major flush started mid-May. So I am succession sowing snaps on either end as well, just to try to hit my wedding target date of early June with a whole bunch of beautiful Chantilly snaps. This wedding is in peachy white tones. Hopefully that's my goal. And there's a touch of blue as well. So that is my goal palette. And hopefully I can hit that with all of the things that I'm starting for this. So I've got Chantilly's in light salmon, which is a beautiful, soft, very pretty salmony color, as well as a white. I also grabbed Costa Midley Snapdragon. I've never grown this one. Chantilly's are a group 1, or sometimes called a group 1-2. So the shortest day length, the coolest temperatures. Costa I've never grown. They are supposed to be more of a group 2. They are supposed to be more tolerant, a little bit of fluctuations, and a little bit more tolerant of like warming up. I just grabbed them because they were on sale, and I just wanted to give myself a little bit more cushion. It's possible that all the Chantillys, it's a super hot spring and they all give up the ghost, and this guy is the one that saves me. So I saw they were on sale. I just thought I'd grab a packet of those too and just kind of spread out my chances of success. I also grabbed stalks, another similar category flower, because snapdragons are being a linear flower. That is what I'm growing them for. I love stalks. Stalks are something that I've always loved and struggled to grow. I am used to working with really beautiful quality stock, and it's not been the case for me. The first few years that I tried to grow stalks, I basically stressed them out when they were still in their trays, and I'm one of the ones that has had the tray of plugs that are all trying to bloom when they're only a few inches tall. That has been the story of stalks for me. They are very not tolerant of temperature, of being too warm, and I tend to struggle a little bit with my growing setup because my seed starting is indoors. It's actually pretty warm in the room, and I don't have a mid-temperature room that I could then move things to that is like cooler for some of these cool loving annuals. I just don't really have that space. So last year was the first year that I did really well with stalks, and what I did was, once they had been growing for a few weeks, I booted them outside and into my hoop houses, which gives a bit of protection, and just kept them at a cooler temperature to grow, and then transplanted them outdoors. So they did a lot better. They really bring so much to a bouquet because of their beautiful texture, their linear component. They fill bouquets out really nicely, and then you get the fragrance as well. Still one of my absolute favorite flowers, whether it's for wedding work or for retail bouquets. So wish me luck on the stalks. I grabbed a couple new strains that I haven't tried. I usually have grown the Cat's stalks. This one is Stalks Antique Rose. Looks like an incredible stalk if I can grow it. And then I also have Iron Apricot, which is a soft, light pastel apricot. So both of those colors should blend in beautifully with the wedding palette that I'm working on. Next one, not for the wedding, but for everything else, Status. Status is a funny one for me because I grew up around Status. My Opa had a commercial production field of Status, and so it's always been rather an ordinary one to me, not one that I ever really was that excited to grow, but it's become one of my most important flowers to be growing in the summer. It is super productive for my climate. This is one that I need very few plants to get tons of stems. It's really forgiving. It doesn't have really pest issues for me, and it flowers right through the summer and into the fall. Basically, it'll flower till the frost, but at some point the quality of the bloom goes down just from the humidity, the fall moisture, and the rain. Status is one that if I know there's rain coming, I run out and I quickly harvest whatever's ready, because rain just makes the flowers turn brown. This has been so valuable for me, not just because it's a great producer, but because it's a bulky filler for bouquets. It brings a good variety of color. There's enough different choices that I can get bright colors, I can get soft pastel colors, and every other stem that I don't use, I can dry and it can go out and be sold later for fall wreaths or for Christmas wreaths. Like dried wreaths are fresh, mixed into fresh wreaths. So it's just one of those ones that for me personally is one of the most important flowers in my crop list at this point. I picked up this one. It's called Forever Happy. It's a lavender, but it's a warmer, rosier, like a pinkier lavender. It looks really pretty, and just change it up a little bit for my customer base, but also just kind of a little bit more of a versatile looking purple compared to some of the more bluer based purples. Next one is, very excited about this, Pansies. So Nature Antique Shades, I would have also been happy with the mulberry one, but Nature Antique Shades is the one I ordered. It suits the color palette of the wedding I'm doing. I have no idea. I've never grown this as a cut flower. Always wanted to try it. I have no idea if this is going to be stretched up tall enough, late season enough for early June to be ready to be able to be long stems to put into any of the designs. I'm hoping just for a few that I can just tuck into the bridal bouquet, just those special little gems. Very, very hopeful. But even if it isn't, very excited to try these out, add these to the crop lists, and hopefully be able to grow these in the future. They are going in my hoop house, so I do already have a good setup for trying to stretch those stems as much as possible. So we'll see. I'm really doubting that they'll be ready enough for that early in the season, but I have a few tricks up my sleeve in terms of design as well, in terms of using short stems in a design for a wedding. So we shall see. Next one, sweet peas. Sweet peas are, again, one of my most valuable crops for me. They flower from mid-spring all the way through the summer for me into the fall. This one here is Spencer Ice Cream. I ordered specifically for the wedding because it is a white sweet pea, which I just don't have in my arsenal. Now, my earliest flowering sweet peas have been around mid-May, so I'm well suited to have my sweet peas on time as long as I'm putting them in my hoop house. But my varieties that I've done have been the Elegance ones and Janet Scott, which are earlier. So I'm just not 100% sure if I'll be able to have Spencer ready on time, but I'm hoping so. And then the other one is, this one's called Susie Zed. I guess Susie Z if you are in the States. Sounds better actually, sweet pea, Susie Z. For us, we say Susie Zed up here in Canada. I'm very excited about this one. And this one is from my friend Pacific Floral. I'm very excited to be able to shop her seed sale this year. I've always been looking in and being tantalized by some of the very cool things that she's had available. Love to support small seed growers as much as the big ones. The small guys are often the ones that have very cool stuff available. The reason I'm adding this one into my crop plan is that I've never had a sweet pea that is not a solid color. All of my sweet peas that I've ever grown, and now that I use them so often in my designs, they're always solid color. This one is variegated and speckledy. I'm just wanting to start adding the textural and visual qualities, also just adding something a bit more unusual looking and elevating the perceived value of the bouquets. That is the reason why I picked out this one to add in this year. I have some Nigella, Love in the Mist, a little mixture from my friend Pacific Floral. It's blue and white. This is specifically hoping to have these flowering for the wedding. I have never successfully grown Nigella. Like, I've grown little short, sparse, occasional germination ones, but I've never had a proper crop. So I'm hoping this is the year. I'm hoping that I can manage to have these timed properly, and I have no idea because I have no personal data to go on. That leads me to a point of just write everything down. When did you start it? When did it germinate? What temperature did it germinate at? And how long did it take? When did you put it outside to harden it off? When did you transplant it? And when did you first harvest it? And then when did you harvest if it's a sort of a flush? When did you harvest the bulk of it? It's very, very valuable information for you. And it's proved very valuable for me because I know, for example, with the Chantilly's, I know how many weeks it should take me to get them to maturity. With Nigella, I'm just taking a chance because again, for this wedding, no idea, but I hope so. And if not, this is a really wonderful dried material. And I've always wanted to try to successfully grow this well. So maybe this will be my year. Hopefully this will be my year. Okay, I've got a really exciting perennial, figwort. I've never really noticed this. I've never really heard of this. And just growing it for the very cool seed structures, the sort of seed spray head that it produces, will be wonderful as a dried addition to my dried work or into Christmas wreaths, but potentially also using it fresh. That is why I'm growing that. Anything that is a perennial has my attention. When you grow on a 1/4 acre as I do, plus I have woods and things to glean from, I have ample space for perennials. And since I don't have to grow so intensively, I have begun to focus more and more on perennials because the cost input on my time to grow perennials is so much lower than annuals that I have to regrow every single year. I'm continuing to lean more and more into perennials that are just easy to deal with, grow really well, and I don't have to keep reseeding them. So that's one. And then I also grabbed this one, Pink Maltese Cross Carnea. And again, hardy perennial. This one's really neat. I don't know how I've never heard of this one before. It almost phlox-like or achillea-like flower. It's supposed to be flowering in sort of the summer months or in the fall, depending on the temperatures. It seems like it likes a little bit of that cooler, maybe not the August temperatures. And it's a salmony pinky color, so really versatile type shade of pink. Looks like it has tall, straight stems, and I'm gonna give it a whirl. I will have to report back on those two perennials on how useful they have been to me in a couple of years. Another one is flax bubblegrass, growing just for the dried seed pods, just for those very cool structural seed heads that it makes. I tend not to grow things like this, as I mentioned, that I have to be constantly sowing. I tend to be going in terms of foliages for grasses, for things that are, again, perennials, and shrubs have become very, very useful for me as well. And if you saw my last video, we were talking a little bit about our mixed hedgerow that we put in with lots of native shrubs, mostly flowering shrubs, and that has really kickstarted even more my interest in growing a flower farm that focuses on some really important focal flowers and a few accent flowers and some interesting funky flowers, and then letting the foliage be low maintenance and easy rather than growing foliages by seed every season or multiple successions of something. So still doing it. Like, I love Beplorum. That's one of my favorites. I'm still growing Beplorum every year, even though I kind of don't really need it at this point. I just love it, but that's kind of where I'm going. So anyways, that being said, this one looks just like a very cool one that I will enjoy working as a dried material. So I picked that up. Nasturtiums, not necessary for a farmer florist, really. For what I'm doing with more designed items or specialty things, that's where things like this come in handy, and I may put it into a little vase arrangement if somebody orders something. It just brings that extra special element. But I partly just order this just because I love nasturtiums. They're also really great aphid magnets, so they're useful if you're using integrated pest management or if you're interplanting. And I've been wanting a vine type one. I have like a lot of compact sort of rambling ones. This is the viney climber. It's also a softer color. The ones that I've always had are always kind of almost too neon-y orange and yellow. So it's sort of a soft lemony, almost a white. And I find nasturtiums are one of those ones that I love collecting seeds from. They're big, juicy seeds. I can get the kids to collect them. They're easy. They self-sow easily. So once I have them, I don't tend to have to buy them again. The last one here is Godetia. I know almost next to nothing about this. I have figured out that it is somewhat of a spring flower. I have figured out that it is cold hardy, thanks to Lisa's book on cool flowers. It's in there, which I didn't know when I ordered it. So I can plant it out before my last frost. I may end up just starting it pretty quick here and trying to have it blooming for, again, at the time of the wedding and just putting it out in my hoop house. Not really sure. I just bought it to try it. I didn't really actually have a plan. There's always a few things that I like to order just to try them and see what fits. It's the only way to find new awesome things that fit my farm really well. So that is the last one. Let me know if you have any questions about these or anything else in the video that I mentioned. I hope this is a really great growing season for you. Expect some failures. They are not failures. They are learning data for us. They are important bits of information for us that help us to grow more successfully in the future. So they are almost as important as hitting it out of the park the very first time. Wishing you all the best as we all ramp up and start to get busy. Hope you enjoyed this one, and I will see you next time.